All right, we're about to go live. All right, what up, ESM? What's going on, guys? We are here with Jeremy Ryan Slate, who is actually the host of Create Your Own Life podcast, and actually someone who's been making some serious waves in the PR game and in the influencer game. He's also the partner of Get Featured. So I want to just make sure that we're up here in the group. It looks like we're live, but welcome, Jeremy, to the show, man. I appreciate you hopping on.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I'm stoked to share some value with those are the people we got out there.
It was funny because we put a little promo piece together, and I asked if people wanted to be tagged in it, and we actually had quite a few people who requested. I think the most people who wanted to be reminded of when we got started. So you've got that lead on everybody right now. So I'm excited to dig in today. Jeremy, I'd love to hear about Get Featured. I'd love to hear about Create Your Own Life, but we always start these interviews with kind of why you're passionate about what you're doing, because you, I imagine you're in your 20s, 20-something?
Give me a guess. Let's see if you can figure out how old I am. Most people can't figure out by looking at me.
I'd say 26 or so.
I just turned 30 in May.
Okay, good. You're probably using some good supplements on the skin there. You're looking really good. So the reason I bring that up is you're out there making moves and out there already making shit happen at a young age. And I know you've been doing this for a while. So why do you have that fire? Why do you have that burn? Where did that come from? Kind of catch us up on the story behind Jeremy Ryan Slate and how that played into, the influencer that you are today.
Yeah, man. So by background, where I am now is totally different than where I thought I'd ever end up. I originally went to school and got my undergrad degree in world religion and theology, studied literature at Oxford for a little bit, and then I went and did my master's in ancient history. And you get out and you're like, all right, I have a lot of degrees. What the heck do I do with my life? So kind of trying to figure things out, I was like, okay, I guess you teach. I guess that's just kind of what happens. It seemed like a natural progression. And being that I didn't have a teaching certificate, and I just kind of had been somebody that I just went the education route. In New Jersey, you can't get a teaching job unless you have a certificate in teaching. So I was going to have to go back to school again. And I had also been personal training in the background as well, because I'd been a competitive powerlifter since I was 14. So I actually went into personal training and started a personal training business, which I ran for the time I was 22 until the time I was 27. And I was running that in the background, but I happened to, about a year after getting out, run into a priest friend of my family that said, hey, we're looking for teachers. Would you like to teach in the private school? Because you don't need a teaching certificate to teach in a private school. So I'm like, all right, great. Sounds awesome. So there was no prep work or anything like that. They just throw you in a room with 40 kids and say good luck. And dude, let me tell you, it's a scary situation. I had this one girl that was the center on the basketball team. She had to be like almost 7 foot tall. I've never seen a girl this big in my entire life. And she didn't do anything the entire semester. And it came down to this one paper I wanted them to do at the end. And I failed her because she didn't do anything. So I had to even write the note on the paper of why she failed. So she crumples the paper up, walks up to me and goes, F you, man. And I'm just like, and that was kind of like one of the last straws for me, because there was zero discipline at this school. Like there was no detention, no suspension, no nothing. So as a teacher, you just went insane. And that was a really tough situation to be in. Then in January of that year, which was 2013, my mom had a stroke. And it was crazy to me because when I was 19, I had what you call a near-death experience, where I tore some ligaments in my knee and had lung damage and got last rites and was kind of in the room floating above myself, which is crazy. And you think it would make you change your life and look for what you want to do, but it didn't. So then when I was 24, my mom had this pretty bad stroke. And it really made me look at mortality and a lot of things that had been happening in my life, and it made me look for something more. And my wife was approached about a network marketing opportunity, and I saw this presentation. I'm like, dude, I'm going to make like $1 million in like 2 days. This is going to be great. And needless to say, things did not go like that, but it was enough to make me quit my job and go out and do something else. Did that for a couple years, and it really wasn't something that I was able to really grow on. And it was a really stressful situation. It was really tough to try and make money like that. So I decided, you know what, the way this is going to work is I'm going to add on more opportunities at the exact same time, because it sounds great to disperse yourself. So I started selling life insurance. And when that didn't work, I started selling private label products on Amazon. And so now I was doing these three things at once. It was going crazy. Nothing was really working. And I actually ended up getting into digital marketing. And after leaving all those things, and that's when I learned about podcasting and that I could actually do it, and started to create Your Own Life podcast, which led me in everything I do now, which changed my life, man.
Wow. So it was a long journey that, it's interesting because everybody always kind of goes through those ruts, and we see everybody and they think it's an overnight success. And for you, it was definitely a journey for you, and it was definitely a progression.
Yeah.
So what, was there a moment where you realized that you were going to commit to kind of doing what you were passionate about? Or was there kind of an experience? I mean, I know you talked about your family and the fact that you yourself went through some traumatic stuff. But what was that like of that commitment process? Because I find that a lot of people in our group, they kind of are romanticized by the entrepreneurship. It's kind of this thing that, it's like how people treat athletes almost. Like they want to do it and they'll play in the rec leagues on Saturdays and Sundays, but actually making that leap and doing what it takes to become a professional is not. I just don't think that they even know what that takes. So what was that progression like, and what was that growth like for you in actually going through being someone who's just kind of this almost amateur to turning into a real professional, in this regard?
Wow. It was kind of realizing that unless you're going to focus on one thing, you're really not going to be able to do it well. And when I was dispersed, I was kind of doing this and I was doing that, and you become a dabbler. You become somebody who's doing a little bit of everything, and it becomes really difficult to succeed like that. So I really had to find something that I could succeed at and really make the flip from offering value, because I was somebody that really was looking to serve myself. And when you're somebody that's looking to serve yourself, it becomes very difficult to make something that's valuable to other people. So, once I had kind of flipped that script and realized I can be a student, is when I really started to offer more value to other people. And it was pretty amazing for me, because then I said, okay, well, if I'm a student, who do I want to learn from? And I looked at some of these people that were big names in my industry, not just in my industry, but just in industry in general. And I said, I'd like to learn from this person, and I'd like to learn from that person, and I'd like to learn from, this person. And that's when I created a list of the top 100 people I'd most want to learn from. And when it made a flip to student, it really changed the game for me. And it really made things different, because I was like, wow, I can learn from these people. And because I'm learning, I'm actually teaching other people. And that was the real thing that made the script flip for me, is when I became a person of value and really flipped it around like that.
That's what we talk about a lot here in the group, and definitely with Millennial Skills, is finding a way that we can provide value to people, so much so that people are willing to pay us happily, and when you're able to solve people's problems and help them, then, people will gladly give you money to solve their problems. So let's get into the podcast. Tell me about Create Your Own Life, and then tell me how that plays into, your new thing, which is get featured. I see it all the time. People are getting featured on, they're getting speaking gigs, and they're getting put on other podcasts and stuff like that. So I myself know how helpful just getting out and exposing yourself, even in other Facebook groups. Anytime I do another live, in a Facebook group, we have another couple of, new dedicated members that are always on the videos. So catch me up on that, and talk a little bit about what you guys do for clients, and let's kind of dive into some of that regard in terms of the PR aspect of business.
Well, we got a lot of really bad pitches as podcasters. So I ended up partnering with Daniel Geffen from the Can I Pick Your Brain podcast, and we got a lot of really bad pitches, and we get hundreds of them every month. So we really kind of saw this as an opportunity to really help people succeed and teach them how to be great guests. Because if you're there and you're somebody, like I said, that makes that flip to serve the audience, it really makes a big difference. So we started, basically, the first thing was like, all right, we're just going to place people on shows. And that was interesting, but we kind of realized there was something else missing. And that was the idea of, really wanting to, coach them to be amazing guests. And we looked at this and we're like, what really breaks down an amazing guest? And it's somebody, first of all, who has an awesome story, a story that people can emotionally connect to, and they hear that story, they're like, wow, this is amazing. and I can feel like I'm in this person's shoes. The second thing is having a great message, because you'll get people on a show sometimes and they'll give you this and this and this and this, and they give you 20 things and you're lost, because a lot of times you're either doing something else, you're working in your office, or you're doing something that's different. And you really have to narrow down that focus and find the one thing. Find the one thing that's your message that's really going to help people, that when they walk away, they're going to remember that message and that single thing they taught you, because you can actually implement it in your life and make it work. And it's such a powerful thing, because you become valuable to them and they're going to remember you because of how you made them feel or how you helped them in their life. But here's the other thing a lot of people fall flat on. A podcaster gets done, and this is one of my favorite ones. I had a guy on my show once and I said, "Where can people find you?" He goes, "Go to Google and type in my name." I'm like, first of all, you're a jerk. Second of all, that's not a great call to action. You need to have some place to send people. You need to have a call to action that's actually going to help people convert into wanting to be part of your audience. And it may take a little while before they turn over into being a customer or a client or whatever, but they're going to become part of that audience. And that's what you really have to look at. You have to tell them where to go. And when it's a market that's niched properly, it's really going to, be amazing for what they're doing.
I love it. Let's take a step back, because I realize I missed a step in talking about why is it even important for people to go out and make an effort to get on podcasts, to go make an effort to, we can even extend it to guest blogging, to, a lot of this community has been built from going into other Facebook groups and things like that. But why have you found that going out and spreading your audience that way has been so powerful for you and your clients?
Because I just feel like it's, especially with audio, because I know video is great, but like myself, I just feel like audio has this thing that's magical. And it has an ability to feel like it creates a relationship with somebody. It's something that it can go anywhere with you. You know what I mean? I just feel like, even if you look at the way a lot of these different mediums are going, like Netflix, like all these different things, is putting the consumer in control. And podcasting puts the consumer in control. So they're really going to follow, their celebrity of their podcast host. And to me, it's really a great way to develop a relationship with somebody as a listener. And it builds a following because people have time to emotionally connect with you. And let's think about it this way too, like, how often are you going to get somebody that's that engaged to sit down and listen to you, right? Like, they're going to sit down, they're going to listen to you for 30 to 40 minutes. That's incredible. You really have time to build that relationship. Whereas if it's a blog post, they actually have to sit and read it. And I've read some amazing long form blog posts, but you have to be pretty dedicated to jump into that. And as a podcast, it's a much easier thing to get into and hold somebody's attention on, because they don't have to be focused on that. It's something that can be done while something else is being done. I love to tell the story of I read the audiobook A Tale of Two Cities when I was in college while playing a full season of Madden. So it's you can really be doing something else while you're doing it, and that's why it's so powerful, because it can keep the consumer's attention.
Yeah, as you say it, this morning I've consumed already an hour and a half of podcasts, and it's just while I'm doing my morning routine and cleaning up the house, and I listen to it in the shower. I was listening to, podcasts in the shower, and it creates that opportunity for people to develop that relationship when they'd otherwise be doing, other things. So that's really cool. Talk to me about Create Your Own Life. What's that about? What do you guys focus on? You guys seem to have a wide variety of guests on there. And, what are some of the things that you've learned, not only throughout this podcasting journey, but maybe some of the guests that have come on as well?
I tend to highlight people that really created life on their own terms, but like not even just that. It's more like they looked at the traditional life path and they said, screw that, I'm going to do it differently. Because I look at, what was given to me, and it was this idea, if you get a good job and you go to college and you keep getting education, you go to grad school, it didn't really do me any good, man. Like, I was making as much as you could make at a Burger King drive-thru. So it wasn't really worth it for me. This dream I was sold was a lie. And that's really what I turned to look at. I looked at who are people who are highly successful and where do they come from and what do they look like? And it really was interesting to look at it like that and really break into those people, look at their life experiences and look at their education background. And the thing that was interesting to me is a lot of the people I interviewed, and that what they were doing were self-educated, which was pretty incredible. They, they were really somebody that said, I want to learn about this. I'm going to go learn about it, or I'm just going to do it and figure it out. And it was pretty amazing in that way. And when I really got to really dig into these stories, it was finding out, what skill sets they developed, what, things they were having going on in their life. Who were they following? Who was coaching them? And the biggest thing to me, what does success really mean? And I found out for a lot of them, it was getting to this higher level so that they could create higher levels of success for other people. Because it's the same thing of when a plane's going down, right? Well, not when it's going down, but before it does. They tell you, put the oxygen mask on yourself before the person next to you. Because if you pass out, you're not going to be able to help that person put on an oxygen mask. And that's the same way with success. You have to be able to get yourself to the next level so that you can help other people do the same thing.
Yeah.
So that's really the biggest thing I found. And I really try to study at the highest level too. I try to study it at the highest level because there's a lot of people that create a life in their own terms, but I want to see how the names have done it because that's what's really going to inspire people because they've created such amazing high levels of success.
We talk about in the group, one of our tenets is that in a business, there's the craft and actually knowing how to deliver your product, deliver your service, whatever that craft is. But then there's also the craft of running a business, and that tends to be universal. Those principles tends to be undying, and I think that those are based a lot on the basic habits. And I know that both you and me are pretty into personal development and things like that. So how have those types of skills, the soft kind of skills, personal development, self-awareness, emotional intelligence, how have those types of skills played into your ability to, like you said, be a good guest, to deliver a good message, and to have those strong call to actions? Do you think it plays a role when someone's starting and running a business?
I think it really does. And the first one is consistency. It's this idea of continually, moving forward and being okay with failure, because failure does happen. You know what I mean? And it's really being okay with it in that way. And that was kind of the biggest thing I took from Grant Cardone, was this idea of the 10X rule and continually taking massive levels of action so you can create something. And for me, when I started my podcast, that was the thing. I made a list of 100 people I most admire and sent individual emails to them, because you know what? If I wanted to get at least 10 guests, I had to take that high level of action. So for me, it was that. And communication is also another really big thing. If you can communicate well, you can make a lot of opportunities for yourself. You can connect with a lot of people in the right way. And that's really, for me, I haven't been huge on personal development, but I've been big on, the level of action I've taken and really communication skills. Because when you have those, you can handle a conversation the right way. You can steer people the right way. And, that's really a big deal.
Well, I guess, when I see you, I look at you and you're always in the gym. I think consistency requires probably just a lot of personal development that you maybe gained, early on. You've been a professional bodybuilder since you were, when I was still, playing t-ball. So no, it wasn't that bad. But you went through that ringer already. So I think that you're not giving yourself enough credit in that regard. So cool. So we're jumping around here, and I apologize for that. And those of you guys who are watching, if you guys have any questions, oh my goodness, Brittany says to flex those muscles. So we got to give them a gun show. Oh my Jesus. All right. So thankfully she asked you to do that, not me. So I appreciate that. So let's talk about some tactics here, and let's talk about some things, when someone is, I know you specialize in, it seems to be in podcasts. We have a few people, I know Anais, who's watching live. She wants to start a podcast. It's in the future for the Millennial Skills brand and platform to do that. So when someone is starting out, what are some key ingredients that they need to have? Some key, ideas that you found have helped people when they're getting started in that space?
Well, the first one is to know, first and foremost, think of yourself as a professional. And I think that's something really important. Then you think of how would a professional act. So that's having a good microphone. That's having good design work. That's, scripting out episodes. A lot of people don't have an idea on where they want an episode to go. And that doesn't mean have everything word for word happening of what's going to be said on there. But it's meaning knowing where you want the direction to go, and also knowing who you're serving. Too many people start a podcast and they're like, I'm serving everybody. And you can't really do that. it's not really something that is doable. You have to figure out who that audience is going to be and how you can serve them, because there's too many times as well that people hosting a show think it's all about themselves, and it really isn't. It's really about who you're helping. So that's what I would look at. I would look at being a professional, having the right equipment, because you have to sound good, man. If you're a professional, professionals sound good, and you have to look good in the way that your design work has to be good. I had a podcast when I first started. It was called Rock Your Life, and I had it for like a month and a half, and it was the worst, most atrocious thing ever. I was the expert talking at my laptop with no miking, and I tried to make the background on my wife's computer in like Microsoft Paint or something like that, and it was atrocious. You really have to think about the perception you create when you put this together, and I think that is really where it stems from when you're going to create an amazing product, is kind of starting from that central point of who am I going to serve, and really offering them amazing value and realizing that you're not always the expert.
And so I think that maybe is a challenge, right? Because I think that when people are starting out, so much of that journey is trying to find that voice and find that, what they really care enough about. So I think that podcasts really offer a unique opportunity to go out and interview people and talk to people, very similar to things like this. So when you're picking guests and when you're deciding what your podcast is going to be like, and then you're deciding on, the flow of it and things like that, what are some things you take into consideration, and what are some things that you've found are helpful when someone is kind of deciding what they're actually going to create? I think I could ask this question a little better, but what the content of their podcast is actually going to include.
It gets tough when you're starting. When you're starting, you just kind of have to get something out there and see what's going to work. And for me, kind of a hack that I did is I went on Amazon and I looked for different people that were authors and featured books in the business space, because they're already going to have an audience, so I can borrow a piece of their audience. And they have a book, so they're going to want to promote themselves. And they're probably a thought leader too. So that was kind of the one big thing that I did, is when I got started, I really didn't have an audience. I really didn't have people that looked to me. And I was kind of like, okay, I can go to Amazon and I can look for books. And that's kind of a great way to start, because you're going to find people with established audiences and you can kind of position yourself, next to them, so you look equally as important.
Yeah. There's so much, leveraging other people, very similar to this, interview, just leveraging other people's, and making it a win-win opportunity for both people is, I think, really your goal in anything that you're trying to do. Too many people, I have people who hit me up and message me, and I'm sure you get the same thing. And it's a challenge, because I'm sitting here thinking, well, what is the benefit for me? And ultimately, I think that's what most people are thinking about, is what's in it for them. And it's a challenge, and a lot of times I do give my time, to people. But when you are starting out, oftentimes you have to put yourself out there more times than people are going to respond back. So that's huge. What about the future? I know you are someone who pays attention to kind of the future of entrepreneurship, and you're putting together an event, a 30 under 30 event. So where do you think the future of kind of influencer marketing, PR, where's it going, and where should people, I don't know, that hockey term, instead of going to where the puck is, try and go to where the puck's going to be? Where do you think that people should keep their eye on? And as we kind of wrap up and get out of here, what are some things that people should be paying attention to over these next, little bit?
Well, I think the day of the big brand is gone. Like we're done seeing like these big brands like a Coca-Cola or ones like this. Like they're going to be there, but far and few between. There's going to be significantly less of them. You're never going to compete with Amazon, but it's the time of the personal brand. And if you can really build yourself, establish your credibility, and build things around yourself, you're going to, create a lot more credibility in your space. And here's the funny thing. Most people don't realize that building their personal brand, they're like, oh, I'm not known for anything. I haven't done anything. And a lot of times it starts at the local level. For a lot of you guys, if you're looking to start building a personal brand, a lot of your small local newspapers will probably want to cover things you're doing. When I started a podcast, I got local papers to pick up my press releases, because when I hit 10,000 downloads, it's not big in the world of podcasting, but to the local papers, wow, that's a big number. They're interested in that and they want to talk about it. So it's really, you can start on the local level and use that to then create more in terms of a brand. And that's why personal branding is the biggest focus and where you should be. And I think it's the future. I really think it's where things are going. And that's why I focus so much about building my credibility on these different social platforms. I just got verified on Twitter. I'm working on getting verified on Facebook as well, because those are things that help build your credibility in the way this current market is. And if you can build that personal brand, it's bigger than whatever business you're currently working in or whatever project you're currently working on. And if you sell a business and just want to work on that personal brand, you're still going to have it. And that's something to really think about.
What about, Amitabh says, would love to know more about PR. Do you think that has a lot to do when someone is starting out and wants to, self-admittedly, I've neglected my PR, and I've kind of built it without it, but I see, I think one of our mutual friends, I think you're good friends with Amanda Rivera, right? Or you know Amanda? Yeah. And I see just what the awesomeness that she's doing and the awesome value that she provides, and I realize that I've neglected it. But what are some other things that are helpful when someone is trying to utilize PR to kind of grow their brand and grow their audience?
It's really the first thing you got to think of is, what am I doing that's newsworthy? Because a lot of times people are like, oh, I want PR, but nobody's going to cover you for no good reason. You have to understand, like, why do you matter? Why does what you're doing matter? So you really have to think about that. And there's a lot of things we're doing that if you just position them the right way, they're newsworthy. It's all about positioning. It's all about how you tell a story that makes it newsworthy. So PR is available if you're willing to go out and find it. If you connect with a writer and say, right now, the name of your group is Millennial Skills. Right now, the buzzword millennial is huge. Writers want to write about millennials doing cool things. So you need to know things like that when you're pitching a story and thinking, I have this interesting thing I'm doing and it's a millennial doing it. That's cool, and they're going to be interested in that. That's why it has to be newsworthy. It can't just be like, I started a podcast. Nobody gives a crap. Why then is it legitimate? Well, I've interviewed X, Y, and Z and done this number in this amount of time. Okay, now it's newsworthy. It's just a little bit of positioning and a little bit of changing how you tell the story. Can't be a lie, because if you get caught in your lie, you're done. But it has to be the way you tell the story that's important.
I think that goes into Precious' question. She says, how do you go about finding your why? She says building your logo and brand, but what are some things that I just think that asking that question, right? Such a good question. What's newsworthy? That's such a powerful question that if you just ask it that way, you're usually going to come up with an answer. But what are some things that you do when you're working with clients to kind of find their why, to find what's newsworthy for them? Is there a series of deeper questions? Is there some exercises, or how does someone go about finding what's newsworthy if maybe even they're just getting started?
It's interesting because it kind of goes into a deeper, like, there's no set way to do it. It kind of goes into a deeper questioning about something you're doing. So for example, like, I just used the example of podcasting because I'm helping a podcaster right now with his personal brand. I said, okay, how many episodes have you done? Well, I've done 150. Okay, cool. Well, how many downloads have you done? 200,000. Okay, cool. That's interesting. Okay, that's newsworthy. Let's talk about that. And they want to talk about things that are quantifiable. So look at whatever you're doing and break it down further and see what individual things about it are interesting. Maybe you built your business completely out of a hotel lobby. That's interesting. Somebody may want to know about that. May not be a huge business, and they're not going to need to know it's a huge business, but they want to know that story because that story is interesting, and it's going to be interesting for readership. And that's what you got to think about, is what is somebody going to want to read or, want to kind of put their attention on. And that's kind of why that positioning is so important.
I dig it. Guys, this was awesome. Amitabh says valuable question. This was just tons of comments on here. So Jeremy, thank you so much for your time, man. Tell me, as we wrap up and get out of here, tell me a little bit about what you're working on. I know you just, I was looking at your pictures and I was like, what the hell is that eagle doing? Oh, it looks like you got a new, I was like, oh, this is the rebrand. And so I know you just came out with like a new brand, which is kind of, it's kind of meta, that you're a branding guy helping, coming out with your own brand. So tell us what's going on. Tell us where, we got a ton of people who are going to want to find out more about you. Mm-hmm. So what do you got going on, and where can they find you?
Well, we just launched the Create Your Own Life branding, which is interesting because I've been doing this for 2 years, but I didn't really know, what represented it and what that audience was. And I've been surveying over the year. And We finally launched it. Brand new website came out, brand new album covers, new logo, and everything's going to be just succinct. So, it feels very, as a brand, it feels very cohesive. So that just launched. I'm also going to be doing some personal brand consulting, which is going to include a course and some other things that are launching later on. So if people are interested in that, they can go to jeremyryanslate.com/personal brand, and there's some information over there. Also, if they're looking to start getting themselves on podcasts, I have a free resource for them that they can look at all the steps they need to know to really get themselves on podcasts over at getfeatured.com/checklist as well.
Getfeatured.com/checklist.
Yes, sir.
And Get Featured is actually a company that will actually help you get on podcasts and things like that, right? So
that's
for
correct.
People who want to do that, you actually provide that as a service too.
Yes, sir.
Cool, guys. Well, feel free to throw any questions. Add Jeremy, go get in his group. Subscribe to the podcast. Is the podcast on all the normal ones? I have an iPhone, so I forget that other people are not Apple Mac.
Yeah, it's pretty much any place you can think of: Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio. We're not on Spotify yet, but we're working on it.
All right. Well, guys, this was awesome. Throw down any questions that you guys have. Tomorrow is Thriving Thursday, so you'll see a poll, and we'll drop a topic in there, and we'll figure it out tomorrow. But go subscribe to his podcast, get that checklist, and we'll catch you guys on the flip side. And it always takes a couple seconds to be live. It's just going to sit here awkwardly.